Hello, thanks for spending some time with me again today. We're looking at the melodies from the Pottag book. This is number 8, and it's marked Allegretto, which doesn't give you a lot of information, but it has, it's very simple, 3 lines long, and it has kind of an interesting character. So I'll go ahead and play it, and then give you a few ideas, things you can try as you practice. Here we go. So that gives you a rendition. What I love about music is if I played it again, it would be different. Not entirely, but it would be different, even if I have a good idea. And this is, it's something you should appreciate. If you go to, for example, with, I played with the Boston Symphony for a few years, and when I was first at the orchestra, Buddy Wright was the principal clarinet player, and he was a beautiful player, and people just loved his musicianship. And what was so great about his playing, in my opinion, was that you'd hear him play a very famous solo in a piece, and you'd hear it on Thursday and Friday afternoon and Saturday, and maybe again on the holdover concert on Tuesday. And he wouldn't play it the same. It would have a fresh spirit every time he played it. It was in the moment. It was like a direct experience. So it wasn't that he was trying to hit exactly the same target. He was trying to get in tune with the music. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today because there are some technical details you can work on here. You get dotted rhythms. Those give a lot of people problems, as Arben noted. A lot of people have trouble with this particular kind of rhythm. And those of you who are intermediate players or just kind of getting going on the instrument, there are certain things that you need to be mindful of just with the literal rhythm. So that's kind of the first place to start. If you do the literal rhythm, you notice that sometimes it's a 32nd and sometimes it's a 16th. And in either case, when it's a dotted rhythm, it's within a beat. So you want to line that up. That's kind of a given. That's basics, right? And it's dun da da, and then it's di da da ba ba. Now you have ya da 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 da. You have a different subdivision. You have the 16ths going. So those are the fundamental things, and things you need to be very mindful of at first, until it becomes automatic, until it becomes second nature. You're always feeling that internal subdivision. So that's a mental discipline. There's some technical skill involved with it. One of the technical problems with this piece is when you go from playing staccato, separated, and then into slurred, and then back again. And you're also changing dynamics. Most people have trouble maintaining the rhythmic integrity when they start slurring. So I'm going to play a little bit of the forte spot and try and show you what I mean, just to listen for this. So when we have the tongue is very quick, very definite in terms of what it's doing, and so it's easier to feel. When you're slurring, what I'm going to suggest is that you have to articulate with the vowels. Then you notice di da 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 di da da, no vowels. And this is where most people have problems. Dum di da 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 dum di da da. They do that downward lip slur with exactly the same rhythmic integrity. So if you're looking for a technical refinement, that's probably the first place that you should look. But I really hope to go beyond that with this piece today. So I hope that by listening to these and listening to great examples from every player that you can find, especially non-trumpet players, especially the great string players, vocalists, pianists. You're going to find stuff that you can, as Mark Gould says, that you can steal. And it's out there. They're putting it out there, and you just have to hear it, value it enough to see if you can make it your own. Now, and I have an example that I'd like to give you. Let's say you were a chef. Now, a chef prepares, excellent food for people to enjoy, and it's healthy for them, and it also gives them an aesthetic experience, when a great chef prepares food. So let's say that chef hears about another chef, and he goes to her restaurant to taste the food, and he eats the food, and he goes, boy, that's good. But see, that's not the only thing he does. What he's also doing is like, how did she do that? Oh, I see. I can taste that, first she caramelized the onions, and that's an unusual spice to use. I can taste that spice. See, what they've done is they've developed their sense of taste to such a high degree that they can discern what the other culinary artist is doing. And that's what we're trying to do with music. So I have a student, an adult student, who's a professional, not a professional musician, but a professional person. He's a lawyer. And he was doing a lot of listening, and I was very happy about that. He's listening to wonderful examples, of the greatest players playing, all different kinds of players. And I would send him stuff, and he was enjoying it so much. And I come to find out, he was enjoying it, but he didn't bring the attitude of the chef. He didn't say to himself, how did they do that? How can I do that? That's what you have to do. How did they do that? And I'm not just talking about technical, I'm talking about musical things here. So it's great to feast on great music, but you want to have an ulterior motivation. For you, you're trying to steal it. You're trying to make it your own. And then when you've done this enough, it'll be just like the great jazz players learned. They would listen to the players of the generation preceding them. Like Charlie Parker listened to Lester Young every night. He would go and listen to him play, and would just pick up elements, ideas, all the ingredients, just like that chef, and then he would go home and practice. Now, he wasn't trying to become Lester Young. He was trying to get ingredients, more stuff in his library, more stuff in his spice cabinet, as it were, so that he could invent his own kind of music, and that's exactly what he did. So these are the kind of things that you want to keep your ears on when you're listening to these. Now, I've been doing a lot of talking here, but I could keep going all day on this, and I don't want to spend too much of your time because I think you'd be better off practicing. But there's some things to listen for. You have that tonguing and slurring thing, but there are a couple of things that are really important to listen for. I made a decision about how I'm going to play the staccato, and this is what I mean. Now, those notes are separated, and you could call that staccato. It means separated, it doesn't mean short. But I have to decide how long the notes are, what the shape of each note is, how the note releases, how much space is in between that release and the start of the next note. Now, that sounds all technical, but actually it's not. It's just taste. So I'm going to play it a couple of different ways. I'm going to play it quite snappy. Now, my 16ths and my 32nds were the same length, and it was very kind of tight sounding. That's a style thing. It's not about right or wrong. Okay, now I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. I only changed one thing, and I hope you can hear it. If you can't hear it, you need to realize that you're not listening well enough, that your ears can become more finely attuned to what's going on. You can become more sensitive, and that's going to be what helps you to grow as a musician. So the change that I made, and this is something you can experiment, something you can do. So there are a couple ways to do this. I can go toot, 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 and I'm stopping with the tongue. That's not wrong, as long as you do it gracefully, appropriately. When the tongue releases, the air goes. When the tongue touches, the air stops. Very easy way to control, and one of the most basic skills that you want to have. I did that the first time. The second time I played it, I didn't stop it with the tongue. I did it the same way I would do it with my voice. Da, 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 da. So I didn't go da, 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 da. I went da, 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 da. You see I've got the same length, but I'm releasing it differently. That gives a different flavor. It's a different spice. So have fun with this. When you practice that rhythm, for example, you're working on dotted rhythm, you go to the Arbin book, you play all the dotted 16th exercises. Don't just play them the same way over and over again. See what you can do with it. Try it very, very long. You know, this says staccato, so I'm not playing it long, but so now I find out, well, you know, my fingers aren't really that good. Dee, da, 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 da. They need to be more precise. How do I know? Because now I'm playing with continuous tone. I just discovered something that I can improve. So I slow it down. I'm just blowing steady stream of air, and I'm articulating with the valves and try not to get tight when I do it. We've talked about this a little bit before if you've watched all the episodes. Okay. I think there's so much more in here that we could talk about, but I don't want you to get lost in the details. And so the last thing I'll share with you today is someone asked Michelangelo how he created the statue of David. And I hope you've had a chance to see that in person. If you haven't, try to at some point. Because it's pretty astounding. This is a giant block of marble. It's larger than life size, shall we say. And so Michelangelo thought about it for a while, and he goes, well, I just removed the parts of the stone that weren't David. Now, the reason why I bring that up, that's a good thing to think about. You start with this block, and he's seeing in the stone, he's seeing David. He just takes off the parts that are not David. So he has a clear vision in his mind. Now, obviously, high skill is involved with that, so on and so forth. And we're doing kind of the opposite. We're putting things in. We're not starting with the block of stone. We're starting with silence, and we're adding things in. But however way we approach it from the artistic standpoint, the thing I want you to understand from this is pretty simple. There are big things like the block of stone, and there are little things like when the statue is finally formed and all the carving has been done, then polishing starts. And so some of the things we're talking about today are polishing, and they're very important, because without that, the stone lacks its luster. It doesn't come alive. It doesn't look like skin, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Wow. And so you need to develop your sensibility toward this. But there are also other things that are simpler. So I look at this music, it's jumpy, it's light, it's fun, it's carefree. But what's actually going on in the music? Dee da 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 da. Da dee da 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 da. Dee da dee da da da. It's basically a C major arpeggio, and it's just kind of wandering around with a scale in between. So let's see if I can make sense out of it. If you think it's that simple, dee da 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 dee da da dee da dee da dee da dum. I'm just waiting for the D to come. You see, dim da dum da dum da dum dee dum 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 da dee. Why? Because all I'm doing is playing down a scale. Now, I found that in the music. Okay, and you can go through it. See if you can find this kind of stuff. You see how that works? That helps me to play because I'm not concentrating too much on the details. So I get into a lot of details, and the details are really important. As I've said, symphonic musicians pay attention. They're meticulous, they're detail-oriented, and they need to be in order to do their job. But you can get lost in the details. So concentrate on the big picture and the simple structure, the underlying structure of the music, and that's going to help you a lot too. I hope that you find some of this useful and that you go right now and apply it to your own work. And don't try and do everything at once. Work on one thing at a time and see if you can get a little bit of improvement. And that way you're going to see a lot of improvement over the weeks and months. Have fun practicing. I'll see you later on down the road. Bye-bye.